I want to show you something. Something real. You see my eyes? You see the sorrow? You see the pain? I am not a trained actor. I can't just turn on the waterworks whenever I so choose. This is all because I watched the first ever Garfield TV special, 1982's Here Comes Garfield.
Yay! Special! Remember this? No? Yeah, I'm old, aren't I? Yeah, to see cartoons in prime time back in the 80s was a rare thing. Not many people had cable, and even for those who did, there was no Cartoon Network back then. We had Nickelodeon, but it was a lot different. The only cartoons Nickelodeon would show were on in the daytime during Pinwheel. Pinwheel, yeah, really dating myself here. They call it prime time for a reason, and back then, with so fewer options, that 8 to 10 o'clock range was primo real estate. There were the holiday specials, and then there were specials which were just kind of there. Take it from a guy who lived it. In the 80s, Garfield was the shit. He was the biggest thing ever, mostly from the daily newspaper strip. Yes, a newspaper strip got him over. These were different times, people. It would be many years before the fat orange tabby would star in his own show. So, until then, seeing this character was like an event. He made you want to see him. Garfield had more than a few specials which were just for shits and giggles, but the one we will be focusing on today is his debut act, the generically named Here Comes Garfield. This is a very simple TV special which follows as basic a plot you'll get, but this is more an introduction of these characters within this new format, so I give them a little leeway there. The story follows the gluttonous cat Garfield and his annoying hyper doggy pal Odie, who are the pets of a guy by the name of John Arbuckle, who I swear has some kind of weird backstory they are not telling us. Anywho, Garfield and Odie share some mishaps around the house, much in the style of the daily comic strip, to the point where John just gets pissed off and puts them both outside. Odie's rambunctiousness gets the better of him. He wanders too far, and he is nabbed by a dog catcher. Garfield then is forced to adjust to a life without Odie. At first he is glad to be rid of him, as he had been nothing but an annoyance since the day they first met. But as Garfield basks in a house all to himself, he realizes that it's just not the same without his pal. He ventures to the kill shelter to try to spring his buddy, but things don't go well, and he himself gets caught. What essentially follows is the tale of a jailbreak, where Garfield, Odie, and their newfound homeless cat friends must mobilize and take down the man, and do it quick before they all get euthanized. It is a simple story, like I said. It seems like every cat and dog duo get their start in the pound, dog kennel themed episode, but Here Comes Garfield does it in a way which I don't think anyone will ever duplicate. It gets real heady, real serious, real dark. When Garfield reunites with Odie, you can feel the dread, the death looming overhead. It still gets to me to this day, and I can honestly say, to me, these moments are sadder than anything I've ever seen on screen. Ever! Worse than Bambi, worse than Old Yeller, worse than the end of Titanic! It is hard for me to even talk about this without welling up. This movie makes me feel so miserable, but why do I keep going back and revisiting it? Does this make it a good special? I think so, since the way they do it. The art is kept very simple, like the comic strip. The animation is par for the course, but there are so many things powerful about this. For one, the vocal talents of the late great Lorenzo Music providing the voice of Garfield.
Good morning, sunshine. Welcome to another fun-filled day with your favorite pet.
He's pretty much the whole show here, and while he is more known for his wry sense of humor and goofy, grumbly delivery, this plot required some serious emotion out the guy. And though his portrayal of Garfield is the kind where he's so slick he doesn't want you to see him sweat, you feel his pain when things go wrong. Though he dials it back, he sells the moment, a Lorenzo Music trademark.
I'll see you, Odie, sometime, somewhere.
And speaking of music, this soundtrack has haunted me for over 3 decades. I will never forget the music of this special, especially Desiree Goyette's heart-wrenching, So Long Old Friend. This song, it is so beautiful and so well sung, I swear to this day that every time I lose a loved one in my life, I hear this tune in my head. It is a song which will burn into your brain forever, be forewarned. In general, I always enjoyed the unique musical stylings of the Garfield specials. They always featured a jazz saxophone ski-bop-a-scatting away.
You know, because of these specials, every time I hear a song that has that low saxophone in it, I always think of Garfield.
These specials often featured the singing talents of Lou Rawls. His voice is one of a kind. The only comparison I can come up with is that he's like a much lower key, much more bassy version of Johnny Mathis. The funky song, Long About Midnight, which plays as Garfield awakens to a kitchen full of food. For reasons unknown, but we'll skip right over that. It's just so toe-tapping and just plain fun.
On a leg of lamb, toast and jam, lasagna in a pan, long about the middle of the night.
The animation quality is serviceable, meaning that it's good, no complaints, but there's nothing overly impressive. Nothing, that is, except for this opening. This little dance Garfield is doing here, nothing short of awesome. The camera lingers on Garfield for the entire duration of the song, and he never stops moving. For a fatty, he sure dances with a funky, infectious rhythm. No two moves are alike, and as he spins and gyrates, he looks so round and three-dimensional, I can actually picture how squishy he would be if I were to just reach out and pet him. This reminds me of that scene from A Boy Named Charlie Brown. Remember Vince Guaraldi's skating? Beautiful. One long cut, no wasted motion, Snoopy moves like a ballerina on the ice. You never see animation like this nowadays, not even in animated movies. Even something as awe-inspiring as Beauty and the Beast never dwelled on one cut this long. I wonder if it's because the public is losing patience, the animators are losing patience, or a little bit of both. Look at Garfield! How cool is this? Even his stripes don't flicker as he turns. I cannot say enough about this opening. Could you ask for a better introduction to a character than this? What else makes this special so... special?
Oh, and by the way, this is just a secret between you and I, but... Garfield and Odie do not die. Yeah, just blew your minds, didn't I?
So when our heroes finally escape their death chamber and make their way back home, the song Together Again starts playing as Garfield and Odie run victoriously fur to the wind. All the suffering they have endured and we have endured right along with them, that moment, you are dancing on the moon. It is one of the greatest payoffs I have ever seen in an animated movie or otherwise. Okay, this is not a gripe. It is not going to affect my review, but I have to address this. Garfield, when he talks, his mouth never moves. Initially, I found this a little baffling. Supposedly, he is thinking his dialogue. After all, cats can't talk. But I always wondered how the other animals could hear him. Do they have some kind of mental telepathy? Or is this just a case of the animators being lazy and not wanting to sync the mouth to the dialogue, which I could see being a huge pain in the buttocks? Now that I'm a little older and a little wiser, I understand the direction a lot more. I have 3 dogs and they can't talk, but I know they can communicate with each other. They have an understanding of who's in charge and they have a rapport during playtime. I think my dachshund and my fat Minpin might even have a thing for each other. But they do all this through non-verbal communique. Dogs and cats are amazing creatures with heightened senses, and they certainly have their own invisible language we will never understand. I think that works great here, especially since the special is so simple. This is an early, more feline Garfield, who walks more on fours than on his gruesome human-like feet. I prefer this Garfield, and it makes more sense. When Garfield matured and the plotlines became a little more complex, that thinking the dialogue thing comes across as way weirder, especially in those moments where Garfield is screaming for his life. He is thinking of screaming. In the later specials and in the TV series, it really seems more like some kind of mind-reading mutant power mumbo-jumbo than an internal understanding. And yet, US Acres? They move their mouths. Go figure! If I do have any single gripe about this special, and believe you me, I am scraping, it's the pacing. This is a concise story within the bubble of a half-hour runtime. It should not hit any snags along the way. But following Odie's capture, we see Garfield just dicking around for about, I don't know, like 5 or 6 minutes. And it's not made very clear what is going on in his head. The Long About Midnight section, as much as I love the song and I do really love the humor, it doesn't belong here. Or at least if they were going to include it, they should have faded it out early. Because after the gags are done, it goes into this awkward phase where Garfield has nothing to do. Yeah, it's basically telling the viewer, these are the things Garfield loves. He's trying to surround himself with these things, to fool himself into being happy without Odie. And this slow period here is his moment of realization. Yeah, but this could have been wrapped up more quickly and made a little more clear. By the way, I haven't altered this clip that you're watching in any way. This is the actual length of this still frame. Garfield just sitting in a lasagna box for 34 seconds. I timed it. Equally strange is how the mood can suddenly shift from sad, tender moments to moments when we are supposed to laugh. I won't ding it too hard for that. In a half hour, I could see that being a difficult transition to make. But even as a kid, this was a little bit jarring. There were times where I felt legitimately guilty for laughing at certain things. And I have just one last strange observation. When these specials came out, there was usually a comic booklet published along with it, which retold the story and expanded on it. In the comic, these two characters, I can swear that their names were Guido and Fluffy. In the animated version, they changed Guido to Fast Eddie. I suppose since he was an Italian stereotype to begin with, to call him Guido, yeah, some people may have found that a little bit offensive. Who'd have ever thought that Garfield could be so racy? The thing that bugs me most about this special is that there's nothing really to complain about! I love complaining! That's what makes these videos fun! But no, I gotta level with you. This is as perfect gets. It tells an amazing story, it clicks with people of all ages, and in a mere half hour it takes you on an emotional roller coaster. I can't believe this was only a half hour. I think back and so much happened in that time. I didn't even talk about the cantankerous old couple, or the cat jonesing for cigarettes. It relates with pet owners and animal lovers such as myself, but in reality it relates with everyone. You forget these two are animals after a while. They are two friends in a jam and they are going to get through it by leaning and depending on each other. This was only Garfield's debut on the small screen, and his technique should be dissected and studied, cause this is how it's done.
In closing, I'd like to introduce you all to a small friend of mine. Come here, ya. Come here. This is Creeks. She is a miniature pinscher and she's about 5 years old. I begrudgingly agreed to foster her while she was getting a heartworm treatment. She came as part of a bonded pair, which wouldn't be such a big problem if I didn't already own my own dog here in Limbo. So that's 3 dogs in a tiny little cubicle. But I agreed to it because the treatment would only last for 3 months and then they would go back to the kennel. But I realized these dogs were in such bad shape, and adding to that they were a bonded pair. In all likelihood, they would not get adopted. So, I caved in and agreed to let them stay. This one, Crixie, she's hyper, her breath stinks, she claws ya, she tap dances on your face, she goes through diapers like they're nothing. There are times I wish I were a less moral human being so I could just put her in a basket and leave her on someone's stoop. But, just like Garfield, over time I came to realize that if Crixie were to go away, I would miss her. It really is true, you don't appreciate the good things you have in life until they're taken away from you. Crixie, you drive me bananas, but I love you. I appreciate you, and it's good to have you aboard. Mwah. That being said, it's about time to grade this son-o' bitch. Here Comes Garfield gets a score of... Ooh! 4.5 stars, not too shabby. So, this is your good buddy Djclyve, and until next time, I'll see you in Limbo. Now, where can I find some damn lasagna in this place?